In November 1974, a British politician left his clothes on a Miami beach and disappeared. He was not dead. He was sitting in an Australian hotel room under a fake name, running out of time. I'll tell you how long he lasted and who actually pulled it off at the end. Level 1, the fantasy. Faking your own death is not primarily a plan. It is a symptom. It is what happens when a person of high status faces a problem whose solution requires becoming a person of lower status. The profile is consistent across every documented case: high public position, hidden financial disaster, a gap between the reputation and the reality that has been growing for years. The moment when the gap becomes impossible to maintain, and the decision, made in what investigators later describe as a state of psychological break, that disappearing is preferable to being seen to fail. In virtually every documented case, the person who faked their death was caught not because they were tracked down, but because they couldn't stay away from the money. The fantasy of disappearing is compelling. The execution requires a discipline that almost nobody who needs to disappear actually has. Level 2. The identity problem. The first practical obstacle is the simplest and the most underestimated: your face. John Stonehouse understood this in 1974 better than most. Before he staged his drowning in Miami, he obtained the identities of two recently deceased men, Joseph Markham and Donald Cliff. He opened bank accounts. He transferred money. He arranged housing in Australia. When he arrived in Melbourne as Cliff, he did everything correctly for approximately 3 weeks. Then an alert banker noticed a well-dressed British man making large withdrawals at 2 different banks on the same street. The banker called the police. Stonehouse was caught not because the identity failed. The identity worked. He was caught because his face was too well known in the country where he chose to hide. In 2025, this problem has become categorically harder. Facial recognition systems at international airports in Australia, the United Kingdom, the European Union, and the United States operate continuously. The identity problem has not been solved. It has been made structurally more difficult by approximately 40 years of government investment in not losing people who want to be lost. Level 3. The money problem. You cannot take your money with you, not in the sense that most people imagine. Wealth at a significant level exists primarily as relationships. Relationships with banks, with investment accounts, with property registries, with corporate structures. Every one of those relationships is connected to your identity. When your identity dies, the relationships die with it. Lord Lucan is the most dramatic illustration of this. Richard John Bingham, the 7th Earl of Lucan, disappeared in November 1974, following the murder of his children's nanny and the assault of his wife. He had no preparation. He had no new identity, no offshore accounts, no structure to receive money in a different name. He reportedly died within a few years of his disappearance. The money problem has a solution in 2025 that did not exist in 1974. Trusts in the Cook Islands, companies in Delaware, assets held by entities whose beneficial owner is not your legal name. The people who successfully disappear financially are the people who built the exit before they needed it. The people who needed to disappear urgently are, almost without exception, the people who had no time to build anything. Level 4. The digital problem. In 1974, disappearing required solving 3 problems: the face, the money, and the documentation. In 2025, it requires solving a 4th that did not exist: the data. A wealthy American who fakes their death and moves money to a foreign account will, within a few years, generate a tax event that flags an inconsistency between the reported account and the identity of the account holder. The IRS does not close cases because the subject has died. It closes cases when the case is resolved. An unresolved discrepancy between a reported account and a deceased person's tax records is not resolved by the person's death. It is complicated by it. Clark Rockefeller, the man who convinced significant portions of American society that he was a member of the Rockefeller family for nearly 30 years, was not trying to fake his death. He was trying to fake his identity. Christian Karl Gerhardt's writer used a mix of charm, disinformation, and forged documents to establish his new identity over several decades. His ability to manipulate information allowed him to live a lavish lifestyle and evade authorities for years. However, his eventual capture in 2008 after a custody battle highlighted the fragility of a false identity, especially when built on deceit and misinformation. The custody battle is the tell. When a personal relationship created a legal proceeding, the legal proceeding required documentation. The documentation did not match. The identity collapsed in the one moment when an identity has to be fully verifiable when a court is watching. Every case on this list followed the same sequence: financial problem, identity solution, digital or legal exposure, arrest. The solution was always the wrong level of the problem. The people who got furthest were the ones who understood the sequence. Money first, identity second, geography third, digital last. And the people who got furthest of all are the people we do not know about, because if they got it right, we don't know their names. Level 5, the legal version. There is a legal version of everything I have described, and it is more effective than the illegal version. A legal name change in a jurisdiction that allows changes without requiring a public announcement, Canada, New Zealand, certain U.S. states, Cyprus, combined with updated identity documents, produces a new legal persona that is recognized by governments and banks. Second citizenship through investment in Caribbean programs costs between $130,000 and $250,000 depending on the country. The legal disappearance is not a fake death. It is a legal death of a previous identity and the legal birth of a new one. The people who use this service are not primarily billionaires trying to escape prosecution. They are primarily people escaping abuse, harassment, political persecution, or financial ruin that they did not cause. Level 6, the structure. At level 6, the billionaire does not disappear. He arranges things so that disappearing is possible if he ever needs to, without doing it. The families who hold assets through foundations in Liechtenstein, that own trusts in the Cook Islands, that own companies in Delaware, that own the properties they live in, the name on nothing. He has structured his life so that his wealth and his identity are sufficiently separated that a catastrophic legal or reputational event in one does not automatically destroy the other. The estate is in the trust's name. The trust is held by the foundation. The foundation was established by his parents. If his personal name becomes legally problematic, the assets do not follow. Level 7, the inversion. And the answer: the people who successfully fake their death, who achieve the functional equivalent of no longer being findable, pursuable, or accountable to the system they left, are not the people who staged drownings and fled to Australia. The people who pull it off are the people at level 6 who never needed a dramatic exit because the structure they built made a dramatic exit unnecessary. They do not disappear. They simply become unreachable through the normal mechanisms of pursuit. The person who successfully pulled off the functional equivalent of disappearing was Howard Hughes, who did not fake his death, but who, in the last decade of his life, became so thoroughly insulated from any accountability mechanism that he was effectively gone while still alive. Hughes did not disappear. He built a structure that made pursuing him more expensive than any outcome the pursuit could achieve. John Stonehouse left his clothes on a Miami beach in November 1974 because he believed the problem was his identity. The structure he needed, offshore accounts, separated assets, a legal identity built years before the crisis, was available in 1974. He did not build it. He built the dramatic version instead. The people who got away did not get away dramatically. They got away boringly over years, through paperwork that nobody was watching and structures that nobody was investigating because nobody had yet identified a reason to investigate them.